Britain built a car brand from nothing but a photograph. In 1960, someone snapped a tortoise wandering across a factory floor, and the joke became a badge, and the badge became a warning. Because across Britain's motor industry that decade, brilliant ideas kept meeting the same fate: brilliant engineering, ambitious styling, genuine promise followed by boardroom decisions, strikes, and bad luck that nobody could design their way out of. 10 cars, 10 different ways to nearly become a classic. Some were let down by their makers. One was killed by the very company that should have championed it most. Let's start with a name that quietly disappeared. Number 10. Riley 472. What does it mean when a proud badge simply stops meaning anything? By the late 1960s, Riley had been reduced to exactly that question. The 472 wore a name with genuine sporting pedigree. Pre-war Rileys had raced and won, but underneath, it was a reskinned Austin Morris Farina saloon, sharing its 1622cc four-cylinder engine and bodyshell almost entirely with Wolseley and MG equivalents. The badge promised distinction. The car delivered none. British Motor Corporation's badge engineering strategy meant Riley's identity had been quietly hollowed out over the decade, entry by entry, until customers noticed they were paying more for less. Sales slid. Enthusiasts who remembered the marque's racing history felt shortchanged, and dealers struggled to justify the premium. In 1969, British Leyland simply switched the lights off. Riley didn't crash, it evaporated, unmourned by the accountants who'd let it happen. But Riley wasn't the only historic name being quietly erased that decade. Number 9. Sunbeam Rapier. Here's a car that looked every inch the coupe Britain wanted. The Series V Sunbeam Rapier, launched in 1967, had crisp Roots Group styling, a fastback profile borrowed loosely from Continental GTS, and an interior that felt genuinely upmarket. Underneath sat a 1725cc four-cylinder engine, offered later with twin carburetors for a sportier edge. On paper, it should have rivaled the Ford Capri that arrived soon after. But the Rapier's performance never quite matched its looks. Modest power meant modest acceleration, and rivals from Triumph and Milligram felt noticeably livelier for similar money. Then came the real problem. Roots itself was absorbed into Chrysler UK during this period, and marketing muscle, investment, and dealer confidence all drained away with the takeover. The Rapier survived, but as an afterthought rather than a flagship. It's remembered today as handsome rather than exciting, a coupe with the right silhouette and the wrong backing. The next car had backing too, and considerably more prestige, yet found its own way to be overlooked. Number 8. Alvis TE21. Would you have recognized the Alvis badge in 1963? Fewer and fewer Britons did, and that was precisely the trouble. The TE21 was a genuinely accomplished Grand Tourer, built by a small Coventry firm with decades of engineering credibility behind it. Its 3-litre straight-six engine, hand-finished coachwork, and beautifully appointed cabin placed it comfortably alongside Bentley and Jaguar in ability. Alvis owners weren't buying badge snobbery, they were buying craftsmanship from a company that had never chased volume. That, ultimately, became the trap. Production was slow and expensive by design, prices climbed accordingly, and Alvis lacked the marketing reach of its rivals to justify the cost to new buyers. Jaguar's E-Type and XJ models offered comparable performance for considerably less money, and Alvis simply couldn't compete on value. By 1967, car production ended entirely, with Alvis retreating into aerospace and military engineering instead. A beautifully built car, undone by a market that no longer had room for expensive rarity. The next entry had the opposite problem: everybody wanted it, almost nobody could get one. Number 7. Humber Scepter. Some cars fail loudly. The Humber Scepter failed by simply being ignored. Introduced in 1963 and revised through the decade, the Scepter was Roots Group's genuine attempt at an executive sports saloon twin-carburetor 1725cc engine, front disc brakes, overdrive gearbox, and a well-trimmed interior that undercut Rover and Triumph rivals on price. Road testers of the era actually rated it highly for its blend of comfort and pace. So why isn't it remembered? Because it was permanently squeezed between badges that had louder reputations. Buyers who wanted sporting credibility looked to Triumph. Buyers who wanted prestige looked to Rover. The Scepter sat capably in the middle, doing everything well and nothing spectacularly enough to be talked about. Roote's shrinking marketing budget, swallowed by the Chrysler takeover, meant the Scepter rarely got the advertising push its ability deserved. A genuinely good car became a genuinely forgotten one. Our next entry had no trouble getting noticed. The problem was what people noticed it for. Number 6. Jensen CR-V8. Picture this, a fiberglass-bodied British Grand Tourer that could out-accelerate an Aston Martin, built by a small West Bromwich firm most people had never heard of. That was the Jensen CR-V8, launched in 1962 with a thundering Chrysler V8, eventually 6.3 litres, delivering a top speed beyond 130 miles per hour and 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 7 seconds. Genuinely formidable performance. So why did it sell fewer than 500 examples? Styling, mostly. Its slanted quad headlamps divided opinion sharply, and many buyers who could afford an E-Type or DB5 simply preferred those shapes instead. There was also a trust problem. Jensen was small, independently funded, and lacked the brand cachet of its rivals, however excellent the engineering underneath. Reliability niggles on early cars didn't help either. The CR-V8 proved a British independent could genuinely challenge the establishment on outright pace, but pace alone couldn't overcome unfamiliar styling and a badge nobody quite trusted yet. It kept Jensen alive long enough for something far more famous. What replaced it stole all the credit. Number 5. Vanden Plas Princess Felita R. A British saloon with a Rolls-Royce engine sounds like a guaranteed hit. It wasn't. The Vanden Plas Princess Felita R combined a handcrafted, walnut and leather interior with a straight-six engine sourced directly from Rolls-Royce, wrapped in an imposing, chauffeur-friendly body. On paper, it undercut Rolls-Royce and Bentley saloons by a considerable margin while offering genuinely similar refinement. The catch lay underneath the bonnet. Buyers expecting Rolls-Royce smoothness instead found a heavy, thirsty engine mated to gearboxes that struggled with the car's substantial weight, producing performance that felt distinctly ordinary for the price. Reputation matters enormously at this level of motoring, and the Princess badge simply couldn't summon the same prestige as the engine supplier stamped inside it. Sales stayed modest throughout its run. It remains a fascinating footnote, proof that borrowing genuine prestige engineering doesn't automatically transfer genuine prestige status. The next car faced almost the reverse dilemma: brilliant engineering, but overshadowed by cars from its own family. Number 4. Hillman Imp. The Hillman Imp was supposed to be Britain's answer to the Mini. In many ways, it was cleverer. Launched in 1963 with a rear-mounted, die-cast aluminium engine derived from Coventry Climax racing technology, the Imp offered genuine innovation: lightweight, decent performance, and surprisingly agile handling for its class. Motoring journalists praised its engineering ambition. But ambition proved the Imp's undoing. That advanced aluminium engine, rushed into production before it was fully sorted, developed a reputation for overheating and head gasket failures. Rootes had also built an entirely new factory in Linwood, Scotland, far from its established supply chains, adding logistical headaches and quality control problems from day one. Early customers experienced exactly the unreliability nobody wants from a new small car, and word spread quickly. The Mini, despite its own flaws, had already claimed the affordable innovation crown, and the Imp never fully recovered the trust it lost in those first troubled years. A genuinely inventive car, undone before it had the chance to mature. The next car's problem wasn't reliability, it was timing, and a rival wearing the very same badge. Number 3. Triumph 2000. Could a genuinely excellent saloon still lose the argument? The Triumph 2000, launched in 1963, deserved recognition as one of the decade's best balanced executive cars. Michelotti styling, independent rear suspension, a smooth 2-liter straight-six, and handling that impressed testers against far pricier machinery. It won early comparisons against the Rover 2000 outright. So what went wrong? Rover, not some external threat. Rover's own 2000 arrived the same year with more radical engineering, at a Dion rear axle, unitary safety cell construction, and futuristic styling that captured motoring headlines throughout the decade. Triumph's more conventional approach, however competent, simply looked less newsworthy by comparison. Then, in 1968, both companies were folded into the same corporate parent, British Leyland, forcing two genuinely excellent rivals to compete for the same internal budget and dealer floor space. The 2000 sold respectably, but it never escaped Rover's shadow within its own company. Sometimes the toughest competitor isn't a rival brand, it's the one sharing your boardroom. The next entry very nearly avoided that fate altogether, and came agonizingly close to greatness. Number 2. Gordon Keeble GK1. A tiny British firm built a car that genuinely rivaled Ferrari and Aston Martin, using a tortoise as its badge, as an ironic joke about how long everything had taken. The Gordon Keeble GK1 combined Giorgetto Giugiaro's elegant baton styling with a thunderous Chevrolet Corvette V8, a space-frame chassis, the Dion rear suspension, and four-wheel disc brakes. Contemporary road tests were glowing: 300 horsepower, 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6 seconds, and genuine Grand Touring refinement. This should have been Britain's supercar success story. Instead, the company priced the GK1 too low to cover its own costs, hoping volume would follow. It never arrived. A prolonged strike at their steering box supplier crippled production just as momentum was building, starving the tiny firm of cash it desperately needed. The company collapsed into liquidation in 1965, briefly revived, then collapsed again in 1967. Barely 100 cars were ever built. Magnificent engineering, catastrophic business decisions, the most heartbreaking what-if of the decade. Almost. Because one car came even closer to changing everything, only to be killed by the company that owned it. Number 1. Rover P6BS. This is the biggest missed opportunity of the entire 1960s. A British-built, mid-engine sports car that could have beaten Ferrari to the punch, cancelled not by failure, but by internal politics. Rover engineer Spen King, fresh from developing the acclaimed P6 saloon, designed the P6BS around a compact, ex-General Motors 3528cc V8 mounted amidships, reversed, driving forward through the gearbox before sending power back to a de Dion rear axle. The result weighed barely 1,270 kilograms, hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 7 seconds, matching contemporary Ferraris, and reached 140 miles per hour. Restyled by David Bake and renamed P9, it looked genuinely production ready. Then Rover was absorbed into the newly formed British Leyland conglomerate in 1968. Suddenly Jaguar's E-Type and Triumph's upcoming sports models were viewed as direct internal competitors, and corporate politics simply strangled the P9 before launch. No mechanical failure, no bad reviews, no lost sales, just a boardroom decision that erased Britain's genuine chance at a homegrown supercar years before anyone else even tried. 10 cars, 10 different endings, but the same lesson repeats throughout. Clever engineering wasn't enough. Handsome styling wasn't enough. Even a respected badge couldn't guarantee survival, because classics aren't just built in workshops, they're decided by boardrooms, timing, and sheer luck. Britain's motor industry spent the 1960s producing genuine brilliance, then routinely failing to protect it. That's precisely why Britain Rewind keeps digging through this history, because the forgotten cars often explain the era better than the famous ones ever could. If this countdown surprised you, there are plenty more missed opportunities still buried in Britain's motoring past, waiting quietly to be rediscovered.